bitter criticism Friday night. Um, I guess we have to read the. I have to read this Al Jazeera World War III special. World War III special. One week later, breaking siren sound across Israel amid Iranian missile attacks. Israel continues to launch attacks at Iranian military and nuclear sites. Trump says not too late for Tehran to halt bombing campaign in reaching deal.
Oye, te vayas en un avión, por favor, llévame a que voy con... Ya, ya. Saca de orden algo.
Anyway, Iran hits Israel with retaliatory missiles after nuclear site attacks. US President Donald Trump says not too late for Tehran to halt bombing campaign by reaching a deal on nuclear program. By Niels Adler, Abi Saif, Hussaid Siddiqui, Julian Kessler Damors, June 13, 2025, updated a day ago. So I guess that's it. There's not too much news. Iran hit backs. Iranian long-range missiles have target sites across Israel, injuring at least 40 people in retaliation for deadly Israeli attacks on nuclear sites and military leaders. Iran says Israeli attacks killed 78 people, including senior military officials, and wounded more than 320 people in Iran. As the Israeli military continues to launch strikes against Iranian military and nuclear sites as well as major cities. US President Donald Trump says it is not too late for Tehran to halt the bombing campaign by reaching a deal on its nuclear program. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has warned Israel that it, quote unquote, must expect severe punishment following the quote-unquote crime of attacking Iran and killing several top-level military commanders and 6 nuclear scientists. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the military operation will continue as long as necessary. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is quote-unquote not involved in the strikes and warns Iran against attacking American bases in the region. A few seconds ago, June 13, Friday 13, new explosions heard in Tehran report. Iran's state-run news agency Tasnim News reports that quote-unquote several explosions were heard in Tehran a short while ago. Footage published by Tasnim News shows smoke rising into the air in the Iranian capital. The cause of the explosions is not immediately clear. We will bring you more information when we have it. That's it. More attacks from Israel. 5 minutes ago, oil markets are spooked as Iran-Israel tensions escalate. By Andy Hirschfeld. Israel strikes on military and nuclear sites, and Iran's retaliation have rocket already strained global supply chains. As airlines suspended flights to Tel Aviv, Tehran, and other airports across the region, oil companies, shipping firms, and regulatory agencies face growing concerns that key trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz could be caught in the crossfire. Merchant shipping is still passing through the Strait of Hormuz, but with increased caution. Iran has previously threatened to close this critical trade route in response to Western pressure. Even the suggestion of such a move has already sent shockwaves through global markets, and the price of oil has risen. And there's a photograph. Greek and UK authorities also issued warnings for merchant vessels using the key trade route of the Strait of Hormuz. And 15 minutes ago, Bernie Sanders says U.S. Quote unquote quote must not be dragged into another Netanyahu war. That's just what Donald Trump himself said, I guess. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders has noted that Israel's strikes against Iran came just days before talks on the Iranian nuclear deal were expected to take place. Quote, the world... Oh my god. The world is more dangerous and unstable as a result of the extremist Netanyahu's government ongoing defiance of international law. End quote. Sanders said in a statement, quote, the U.S. must make it clear that we will not be dragged. The U.S. must make it clear. Quote, the U.S. must make it clear that we will not be dragged into another Netanyahu war, end quote, he added. Quote, along with the international community, we should do everything possible to prevent an escalation of this conflict and bring the warring parties to the negotiating table, end quote. I guess Trump just said something just like that 25 minutes ago. If you're just joining us, the summary, let's bring you up to speed on the latest developments. First, the Israeli military says, now first of this, there's a new live update. A few seconds ago, Trump appears to be pursuing profoundly misguided strategy. Trump says something against this Israeli action. Thomas Countryman, a former U.S. State Department official, says civilians will likely be the main victims of, quote, Israel's reckless military action against Iran. Quote, the United States for 25 years has discouraged the Israeli government and especially Prime Minister Netanyahu from attacking Iran, end quote. Countryman told Al Jazeera from Washington, D.C., quote, 5 U.S. presidents, including Trump, in his first term, resisted the Israeli effort to have the United States military fight Israel's conflict with Iran, end quote. But Countryman said it's unclear if Trump discouraged Israel from launching its attacks this week, as the U.S. president instead appears to be trying to, quote, to use the threat of further Israeli military attacks on Iran as negotiating leverage with Iran, end quote. Quote, if that's what he's doing, it is a profoundly misguided strategy, end quote. He added that Netanyahu is hoping that Iran will target U.S. forces in the Middle East, thereby dragging Washington into an, quote, active support role for Israel's attacks. And there's a photograph. Trump welcomes Netanyahu at the White House in April. Anyway, where we are. 20 minutes ago, Bernie Sanders, I just read that. 25 minutes ago, if you are joining us, the Israeli military says another round of missiles has been fired from Iran. Explosions were heard in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Another round. So by this time, it's been like 3 rounds. The army also said it intercepted quote-unquote hostile aircraft that entered Israeli territory near the southern city of Eilat and the Negev desert region. The Qatari Emir has urged de-escalation and the need for a diplomatic solution in a phone call with US President Trump. Iran's response to Israel will be quote-unquote firm and quote-unquote lawful. To restore deterrence, the country's UN ambassador says during a special meeting of the Security Council in New York. And the last one, the Israeli envoy to the UN says Israel's attacks on Iran aimed to quote-unquote prevent its destruction. 28 minutes ago, dozens of missiles launched at Israel in last hour, army says. The military says, quote-unquote, some of the missiles were intercepted without providing a precise figure. Rescue forces are operating in several areas across the country where reports of casualties have been received, end quote. It said in a statement. Half an hour, 30 minutes ago, Russia could play mediating role in de-escalating crisis. The Jews always make a lot of trades with Chinese, Russian, everybody. Giorgio Cafiero, an analyst and CEO of Gulf State Analytics, notes that Moscow has offered to play a mediating role and, quote, it will be interesting to see if Tel Aviv and Tehran decide to take the Kremlin up to this offer, end quote. But Cafiero told Al Jazeera that any potential de-escalation may be a while off. Quote, right now Iran is not interested in restraint or de-escalation. Iran is determined to send Israel, and by extension the rest of the world, a message that sending such strikes against Iran meet very, very serious consequences, end quote, he said. Quote, that is the message that Tehran is sending out right now, end quote. 35 minutes ago, Israeli media report direct hits in central Israel. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz, citing emergency services, is reporting that Iranian missiles fired in the latest round of retaliatory attacks hit several buildings in central Israel. Israel's Channel 12 reported loud explosions in several residential areas in central Israel and said that an Iranian missile landed directly in Tel Aviv. And there's so this is not too new, so maybe I'm going too fast. This is not 35 minutes ago, but 3 hours ago. Smoke billows after a projectile hits a building in Tel Aviv. Maybe it's a second wave, who knows. 40 minutes ago, Trump's next move critical to prevent regional falling in, quote-unquote, into the abyss. The International Crisis Group, ICG, says, quote, whether an open-ended war plunges the entire Middle East into the abyss will depend largely, end quote, on that US President Donald Trump does next. Quote, Trump's initial statements paint Israel's strike as useful leverage for nuclear talks, but to see them that that way is a mistake, end quote. The think tank said in a statement analyzing the latest Israeli attacks on Iran and retaliatory firing by Iranian forces. Quote, instead, he urgently needs to press Israel to stop ramping up its campaign and offer Iran incentives to stand down, while making clear that to Tehran the ruinous costs of not doing so, end quote. The ICG added that Trump should press Netanyahu's government to stop escalating the situation, possibly through a threat to block weapons transfers to the country. At the same time, the US president should offer Iran, quote, a set of reasonable terms, end quote, on nuclear deal negotiations such as sanctions relief. Quote, such a course will require difficult diplomacy and for Trump to face down what will be fierce opposition in Washington, but moving in the opposite direction as he appears to be doing now is far worse. And finally, 1 hour ago, there's just photos, Iran's retaliatory strike on Israel. Rescue and security personnel carry a wounded person at impact site following a missile attack from Iran in Ramat Gan. I could not hide my happiness, my happiness against Israel. And I guess this is the first time in universal history that we had such great videos, such great images from a missile attack, because Israel is the first rich technological, full of cameras country to be attacked. In the whole human history, the whole history of imperialism, well developed camera technology, the rich never got attacked. This is the very first time, I guess. This is the very first time a well-developed, rich region is attacked. Well done, Iran. Nice images. Actually, it's beautiful. The missiles are beautiful. A few seconds ago, EU's von der Leyen calls for restraint. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense and the protection of its citizens in a call with Israel's President Isaac Herzog, while asserting the importance of maintaining, quote-unquote, regional stability. Quote, I urge all parties to act with maximum restraint and work to de-escalate the situation, end quote, she said in a post on X. But this is not important, this is obvious. I mean, what about Iranian citizens? I will repeat, this is the very first time in human history that we have those kind of images, and images in the first hand with nice cameras. So this is the first time we have a real idea of how a missile attack is like, and I guess it's beautiful. Terrific, but beautiful nevertheless.